Episode 181. Is Biodigital Convergence the key to eternal life?
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
And welcome to another week, another Monday, another start of a week of the very best podcast in the world, your only source in the universe for personal supremacy through health, wealth, and happiness. Now, you're probably thinking, what drugs did he take over the weekend to kick off the week with an episode with terminology in its title that I've never heard before? And it's a pretty philosophical episode because I had one of the podcasts that I listened to was discussing, this whole conspiracy mumbo jumbo around the COVID thing going on. And along this came up the term of biodigital convergence. And with Uncle Elon, having pushed his Neuralink repeatedly as, the new frontier in digitalization. Jesus Christ. I was like, okay, this is an interesting thingamajigger to look into. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to discover whether or not biodigital convergence may be the key to eternal life, and whether or not that's a good thing. So before we get started, as always, we have our housekeeping. Number one, the views expressed herein are my own, so if you don't agree, go fuck off. Number two, sharing is caring, meaning that if this episode is interesting to you, share it. Share it with other people. If you're a bit more of the intimately connected person, and you think that an episode that you hear here, that sounds so retarded. An episode that you hear here may resonate or may help, somebody in your inner circle or, median circle or outer circle. There are share buttons in your podcast app where you can directly beam the episode to their Neuralink, to their phone or whatever they listen to their podcasts on. And perhaps it's going to help them. And that's what this podcast is essentially about. I'm doing it altruistically, and you should too, I think. So with that all being cleared out, I think we're going to have to define what biodigital convergence actually is. So we've got this term that, kind of arose a few years ago out of the ashes of, whatever. It means very roughly the merging of biological and digital instruments into a, shall we call it harmonic unison, marriage, wedding, whatever, to improve whatever biological underlying structure may be involved there. So in this case, and let's stick with Uncle Elon for, him being a pioneer and all, let's stick with that. So this Neuralink thing is obviously a digital gadget similar to your phone, which connects directly into your brain. Sounds painful, if you ask me. And I'm, still debating with myself whether or not that's actually something desirable. Can I detach it? Can I turn it off if I want to be in private? There were interesting things discussed. The one that stood out mainly for me in these, very polarized times is, you can look at someone and, your connection with them through Neuralink obviously will give away their truthfulness, or whether they're lying to you or whether they, are trying to pull you over the table or whatever. So, I find that in these times insanely interesting, because even, I grew up in Germany where politicians, you grow up in this little protected, nest, essentially, in this country that was, war torn. Even my grandparents lived through World War II, and they endured severe shit, right? And I grew up in this society where I didn't have to worry about fucking anything. So, comes adolescence and you're like, okay, politics, right? You've got your genuine statesmen. Of course they were crooks. Let's talk about it. Let's be honest. Hands down, all of the chancellors that Germany had, they were all fucking crooks to some degree. And, you start to wonder, and then you get to these times where you have a shitty reality show salesman, being president of the United States. You've got a lady governing Germany, the Federal Republic of Germany, who grew up on the other side of the Iron Curtain. And you have, several events where you wake up in the morning and you're like, how the fuck did that happen? How could people be so, and then you're like, okay, whatever, carry on. But, and then you've got politicians publicly asking why everyone is in despair about politics. Have these crooks really lost all attachment to reality? Anywho, long story short, would be a nice thought experiment, if, I don't know, whomever, Biden, Trump, Obama, or Merkel, or Xi Jinping. I mean, everybody knows that these guys are lying, but it would be interesting to know when they are, interesting thing to think about. Now, obviously, this biodigital convergence goes one step further. And upon hearing what the ideas were, a think tank called Horizons in Canada dug it up most recently and brought forth this, for them, obviously, utopian vision of what life in this world would look like. And I can relate definitely that, what for them may be utopian for whatever reason may sound insanely dystopian for a lot of people, right? Imagine yourself being connected, through multiple sensors, and to the cloud, whatever that may be, and whoever may be running it. And your data being scanned and constantly, and, your thoughts being, not necessarily monitored, but, kept, like, for instance, your email correspondence or whatever, which essentially goes into, a very large data center somewhere and is stored forever. Every piece of communication that you undertake is in, one way or another, as of today. And it's like, do you want your thoughts to be monitored? Do you want your thoughts to be, even if it is for the sake of analyzing your dreams and, maybe pre-detecting any psychic or psychological issues you may be running towards, right? I'm not sure if I'm, in or out of this, but obviously, the futurists who are not always the brightest stars in the sky from my experience, but a lot of them are just, so full of shit that they are able to sell their visions to politicians. But that's a different story. So all of these are gunning for it, right? They're going for this whatever topian future where essentially, and that's where my thought ended, was the question of what happens to our consciousness, what happens to our memories, what happens to our, whatever else is there in our brain when we pass away biologically. And that's where an interesting thing comes up. An interesting thought arises inevitably. Where would humanity be if we were able to conserve the knowledge of, whatever great civilizations were before us? Be it the Egyptians, most famously, or all the South American great civilizations that were there, up to the Mayans in Mexico. The China of 5,000 years ago, all of these great civilizations that were there. Where would we be as a humanity if we would have been able to store all of their knowledge and basically hand it over to the next generation, without the hassles of the next generation having to learn all of that shit and going through all of the bad experiences? So basically one of the underlying causes of this podcast, right? I've gone through a lot of shit in my life, and I tried to prevent my listeners from having to go through the same shit just by letting you know, right? Now imagine this. You are born, and immediately you've got humanity's knowledge at your fingertips. And since the knowledge is, and even has been for hundreds of years now, so I don't know what the correct terminology is. I'm going to use verbose. It's just so huge. Humanity's knowledge is so, and has grown so substantially over the past, 100, 200 years, right? Imagine you were able to access this immediately at birth. And then draw your own conclusions. And, from the knowledge being there, with a little bit of help of AI, being able to move this on. And at the start of your life, you don't have to learn shit because it's immediately there and you can immediately apply it. Kind of like imagine Nemo in The Matrix. Nemo? No, that's the other dude. Sorry. That's the fish. So anyhow, long story short, let's take things one step further, right? And let's think about, the sustainability aspect. If we as bio-waste and, all of this consumer grubbing, matter weren't there, if, everything we are was to live digitally, and we would be able to control robots and machines to build stuff for us, which essentially we wouldn't need because there would be no need to build anything, right? Which brings a whole different perspective to these NFT things. Damn, I have to invest in them. No, but jokes aside, I think there are two sides of the coin to this that have to be seriously debated. I know, that's a thing of the past. Science now is what the mouthpiece of the government and presumed scientist says. Other opinions are deplatformed and not further discussed. Scientific dialogue, scientific multi-log, scientific discourse doesn't really happen anymore. Yay science. Hashtag yay science, and that's an interesting development that we're going through right now. But, what are your thoughts, right? Could humanity excel? And why would we? you know, there, Uncle Elon has these plans to colonize Mars because, if a grave disaster happens here on Earth, at least we would have a colony on Mars, and, that kind of ordeal and those kind of arguments. But are our physical bodies really necessary? And is, this biodigital convergence vision that's becoming more and more present in the advent of these far from that video conferences and, being isolated in your home and those kind of ordeals, is that something that's really, really desirable to essentially, but gradually transfer humanity into this, Borg-like supercomputer where everybody is connected? We have no need for anything anymore, right? Because, we don't have a physical presence anymore. So, we don't need shiny cars and, all of those other kind of things. Maybe interesting, the kind of NFTs you have hanging, on your wall of your imagined office space when you work or when your digital alter ego works, but with access to humanity's knowledge. Interesting perspective. I don't know if I'm going to be frightened or freaked out in a positive way. So in that sense, why did I launch this episode in the first place? Right? I think it was the concept introduced or thought of as eternal life, right? Wherever that route may go, whether it's eventually going to end up that all of us are just going to be, a mere digital blip, that all of our knowledge gets assimilated and altruistically, preferably given to the next generation to prevent them from making the same mistakes we made? Or is eternal life where after our biological life, however much extended, ends, and our memories and our experience and our consciousness and our subconscious and everything is downloaded and made available to our ancestors. No, not our ancestors, our siblings. Sorry, got that wrong. So wherever this is going to go, the governments are going to fuck it up again, as always. And I think that corporate interests are going to make that whatever happens, they're going to try and turn that into profit. And that's what I worry most about, that eternal life can only be given to those that, play by the rules, et cetera, et cetera. And that essentially is going to weed out a few very good ideas. Let me give you an example. Many years ago, when Apple started to introduce the App Store and thereby essentially censoring what software gets put out and gets in front of the people, you can call it what you want. It's censorship. And I had this big debate with an Apple, high-ranking Apple employee. And I was like, hey, listen, let's look at the sleazy business, right? Let's look at the porn industry. They were in the past responsible for the greatest achievements on the internet today. Without the sleazy business, without the porn industry, there would be no payment. There would be no video content on the internet, or at least not in the way, shape, or form we're experiencing it now. Online payment became a necessity, so they pushed for it because they're loaded. And the internet wouldn't be what it is. And even that didn't really move them away, because their predominant goal was, of course, to earn money, right? Away are the days of Steve Jobs, where, of course, he was the biggest dude at making money. But he had ethics. And I think in light of his return, all of these ethics were kind of cleared from his head. I don't know what happened to all of his, mind-opening experiences. But anyhow, after his return to Apple, a lot of that went into money-making, or turned into money-making. And so this debate ended with, several arguments. Yeah, of course, it was never mentioned that they want to make money, yet that's the primary goal. In front of that were set arguments like security, because it's a closed environment. You can't introduce any malware. So I get it, totally get it. But forfeiting technological advancement in favor of snowflakey point of views, worldviews, I think is very limiting. So is biodigital convergence the key to eternal life? I think it could be, yes. I think it could be a milestone for humanity to excel exponentially, that our civilization could be the one that makes it into the next level without destroying itself or being set back by a cataclysmic event. And so I think, yes. Are there downsides? Absolutely. Tons of them. And they need to be addressed. And they need to be addressed fast. Because I think in light of everyone and their dog accepting this new normal so quickly and adapting to it, I think we're going down a road and we're accelerating, and we're missing all of the potential accidents and obstacles that are in our way into the next phase of the development or the evolution of our civilization. So in that sense, I hope you have a thoughtful rest of your Monday. I hope I didn't promise you too much with the title. I think, again, it's a clear yes, but with an asterisk, or two, or a dozen. So look into it. See, what you think. Let me know what you think. And have a nice rest of your Monday. And if you've already had your Monday, have a good night. And we'll be in touch tomorrow. Goodbye, folks.